our acting director, Professor Mzwanele, to welcome the Rector, and then the program will begin. Maybe just to mention that we've got buttons on this side and our lights. You can just walk through either this door or that door, and we also have a Wi-Fi password that you can connect to. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Good afternoon. Greetings. Minister Mzwanele Nyhonsto. Greetings to the students, to the academics, professional staff of the university, members of the executive, a special warm welcome to our new rector, Professor Balfour, and a special welcome to the activists from social movements who are struggling for land in urban and rural areas. My name is Ruth Hall. I'm a professor here at UWC in the Economic and Management Sciences faculty. And I'm acting director of the institute you may know as PLAAS. Today, as part of our faculty's focus on land, a special strategic focus on land, we have convened together with our friends and comrades at Tshisimani Centre for Activist Education this dialogue. Friends, on the 23rd of January this year, President Ramaphosa signed into law the Expropriation Act. It has been long, Minister, in coming. Yeah. In fact, it took nearly 30 years to bring the law in line with our Constitution, which clearly says that the state can expropriate property, including to bring about redress and land justice, and it does not need to pay market-related compensation. In these years, instead of using its constitutional powers, the state has been buying land, and it has redistributed only 11% of the commercial farmland in all these years. We are in a world reeling from disinformation and fake news, where we are told, without any evidence, that white land is being confiscated, that there is white genocide underway in South Africa. In this way, the real politics of land has been obscured, and the public narrative has focused on the fears and interests of landowners. Missing in all of this has been the voices of the landless who want land to be expropriated. In today's dialogue, we have invited speakers who are involved in specific struggles for land, to hear how expropriation could be part of the solution to these struggles. Land and property are at the heart of economic power, political struggle, identity, belonging to a place, a community, a nation. We often talk past one another when we talk about land. Amid the urgent struggles underway today in South Africa, today's dialogue is an invitation to a constructive conversation. Who and for what should land be expropriated? What could this enable? We will likely not all agree, or not on everything, but in the spirit of an engaged university, we can debate. And we are privileged today to have our Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development come to UWC to listen and to speak with us in this dialogue, and to welcome the Minister and our panel. I now hand over to our Rector and Vice Chancellor, Professor Robert Balfour. Rector, thank you for being here. Over to you.
Honourable Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development, Mr. Nyhonsto, Mr. Sevire Ndoda, Mr. Lange from Tshisimani School of Activist Education, Professor Ruth Hall, Mr. Nyhonsto, maybe colleagues from France, our President of the SRC and members of the SRC and UWC, colleagues, students, activists, community members and friends of UWC, a very warm welcome to you, as also the members of our panel this afternoon. I want to mention particularly Betty Fontaine, Sabora Majeke, Bevel Lucas, Nazir Sonde, and Macintosh Assembly, all very, very warmly welcome to the University of the Western Cape. It's really especially an honour, Mr. and colleagues, to talk to you today about expropriation as a tool for land justice, a tool for land justice that is deeply rooted in our history. It's tied to our past, our present, and will certainly shape our future. For many, land is more than just property. It holds memory, identity, it holds dignity and influence. It is the backbone of economic security, and yet its distribution remains so very unequal, shaped so much still by race, class, and a long history of dispossession. UWC has always been a place, Honourable Minister, for engaged scholarship, where intellectual inquiry meets the reality of our communities, and ideas are tested against the urgent challenges of our time. Our commitment to social justice as UWC is more than an abstract principle. It is a lived reality, and the university is a welcoming space for bold, honest, and necessary conversations about issues that matter to our communities we serve in South Africa and to South Africa more broadly. For nearly 30 years, PLAAS at UWC has been leading research and shaping policy, working with communities to advance land rights. This year, PLAAS celebrates its 30th anniversary with the thankful. Valuable role in shaping national and continental discourse on agrarian change. But we must recognise that the work is far from over. The passing of the Expropriation Act, to which Professor Hall made reference, marks a new phase in our journey towards land justice. It is one that requires very careful scrutiny, inclusive participation, and above all, action. Action that centres on those who have been historically dispossessed. This is an urgent dialogue, and the Act has ignited debate across the political spectrum. Some have welcomed it as a necessary tool for redress, while others have tried to discredit its intentions, stirring public anxiety with disinformation and misplaced fear. What has been missing from much of the debate are the voices of those who stand to benefit the most. The landless, communities, emerging farmers, even urban residents fighting against spatial injustice. That's why the dialogue today is so important to us, and that's why I'm thrilled that you are here at UWC to be part of it. We are here to discuss the Act and explore how expropriation can be used effectively, but the real question is, how do we ensure that it leads to meaningful change? What models of redistribution will genuinely shift land ownership patterns in our country? How do we make land distribution serve as a tool for equity rather than only a bureaucratic process? And most importantly, what role can universities, activists, and civil society play in holding power accountable as the law is implemented? As an engaged university, Honourable Minister and guests, UWC does not sit on the sidelines of these conversations. Our young scholars, our students, our established researchers and research centres all contribute directly to policy advancement and shaping the common good. That is why partnerships such as the one between PLAAS and Tshisimani School for Activist Education are so important to UWC, because they remind us that knowledge is not only produced in lecture halls, but is also lived in our experience at the forefront of struggle. In working towards my closing remarks, Honourable Minister and members of the department, we are honoured, deeply honoured to have you with us today. You are no stranger to the issues we will be grappling with this afternoon, and you will find that UWC is a place where critical engagement is encouraged. We welcome your insights on how government envisions the implementation of the Act and how we as university, civil society and an informed public can ensure that expropriation is used to realise meaningful land reform. I want to emphasise that this is not a one-off conversation. It's part of an ongoing national effort to move from policy to practice, from aspiration to action. But that is precisely what a democratic society should in fact be doing. And so today's discussion should be robust. It should be, even at times, uncomfortable. We do not seek a consensus for its own sake. We seek together today, as we talk together today, we are looking for clarity, strategy, and pathways forward. I would like to thank the organisers, particularly PLAAS and Tshisimani, for creating this platform for open debate. Thank you so very much, colleagues and friends of the university. And to all our students, our academics and our workers present today, your engagement with us is what makes this meaningful. So please also participate. Honourable Minister, colleagues and guests, I encourage you all to listen carefully to the discussions, to engage critically with each other and contribute meaningfully. This is an opportunity for all of us to step forward with courage and with knowledge and with a shared commitment to justice. Once again, Honourable Minister and everybody, welcome to you guys.
Thank you very much, Rector, for such wonderful words. And thank you also for mentioning that PLAAS is celebrating its 30th year this year. Yes, indeed we are. And we are going to have a conference sometime in October. Thank you very much. It is also true that UWC has always been known as a university where such discussions take place, while others shy away from holding them because they are such emotive. At UWC, we are not afraid to engage in discussion and conversations. So what I will do now, I'll introduce our panel. So this is how our program will unfold. We're going to have a panel to share their inputs. They are all activists who are involved in different struggles for access to land and housing. So we'll get to hear their inputs, where they will be reflecting on whether this Expropriation Act will assist them in any way, and also share their input with regards to land justice broadly, as to whether this tool will lead to that or not. So I will introduce the panel. So after the panel, then we'll have the minister. The minister will speak for about 15 minutes, and then we'll have a response from the panelist, and then we'll have an open discussion. So on that note, I'd like to call upon on stage Betty Fontaine. She is a farm worker from the Dorrans. She also works closely with women on farms. She will speak from where she's seated for 3 minutes. Thank you very much. And we've got our timekeeper over there. If you see a green card, it means we're halfway in the allocated time. If you see the red card, it means you've got to stop.
I am a former farm worker, Betty Fontaine. They're from the north area. So, I shall begin to say this, and I will only say this in English, and then I will speak my own tongue. There's a slogan that says, those who work the land shall belong to those who work the land. I was 13 years old when I started working on the land. And I'm over 60 now, and I still haven't got land. So, it will wat hulle sê grondoneiening sonder vergoeding. As ons as Women-on-Farms vroue stem volkome saam, want tot vandag toe het ons nog niks in ons hande nie. En ons is uitgewerk, ons is afgeleer gewerk. Nou wil ek sê, as ons grond het, sou ek nie vandag gestaan en waar ek staan nie. Ek sou 'n huis gehad het. Ek sou my eie besigheid gehad het. Ek sou my kinders na hierdie universiteit toe kon stuur. Maar ek kan nie, omdat ek 'n plaaswerker is. En omdat ek 'n plaaswerker was, het ek op 'n plaashuis gebly. En as jy 60 is, dan tree jy. Jy het die kaart en transport vir die huisie. Jou kinders mag nie by jou bly nie. So dis hoekom ons sê, grondoneiening sonder vergoeding sal 'n baie goeie ding wees. Die grond moet gelyk opgedeel word tussen almal. Dat ons kan grond hê om ook vir onsself te kan sorg. En dan as ek vandag grond gehad het, dan sou ek nie vandag government oorby gehad het. Want ek sou my eie besigheid gehad. Ek sou my eie besigheid gehad. Ek sou hom gehad. En dan was ek die government afhankelijk vir die oorby. So, vandag staan ek government afhankelijk. Ek wil hê die minister moet hoor my hart en ander vrouens se harte. Soos ons hier staan, dink ek, ons sou baie beter afgewees het. Dan het ons as organisasies al baie lank al aansoek gedoen vir one woman, one hectare. Ek weet nie of die parlement het ooit al gehoor het. Hulle het het gehoor, want ons was daar. En as ons daai 1 hectare het, dan het ek my huis gebou op daai hectare. Ek het my besigheid hier, want ek het 'n groot besigheid nodig om vorentoe te kan gaan. Ek sou my besigheid kon gebou, my bakery wat ek wou gehad het. Ek sou my garden gehad het, en ek sou ander huisgesinne kon gevoed het. I thank you. Ek is gestop.
Thank you very much. Immediately when she started talking, I thought, who's going to translate? So I started translating. So I wouldn't be able to have the passion and the energy that Auntie Betty had. She agrees with the Land Expropriation Act. She imagined that if she had land before, she would have owned a house. She would have had her own business. She would have been able to send her children to this university. She feels that with the Act, her position is that it needs to be divided equally. And with land, she would care for the land, and she would not depend on government social grants. She also again reiterate the importance of land and relate that to gender, 1 woman, 1 hectare, and all again relate to building a house, a bakery, a garden to feed her family and also other families. Thank you. I hope I've done justice.
Time, we don't have time. we still have another round. Because of time, I will not comment further. What I will just do, just call the next panelist. Because we've only had the benefits that comes with owning land. Yes, it was quite clear. So next in line, we've got our comrade here, Samora Majenge, who is part of Inklungu, Yasemanjojo. Over to you. Thank you.
High morals, high discipline. High morals, high discipline. This is a disclaimer that, or rather disclaimer that we are not the hooligans. We are here because of we know what we deserve. If you know the slogan, high morals, high discipline, we are driven by high morals and high discipline. No hooligans. We are here because of we want to answer the question that do this expropriation assist us or serve our interests? But I have a key fundamental question that I want us to ponder upon. The key fundamental question, before I say, my dear panelist next to me, I understood fully why she said she accepts, or rather she is receptive of this ideology of this expropriation, because of she thinks that it will serve the interest of land reform policy, or rather land reform act. But let me drive your mind to 1976. I wanted to talk about three political figures. One is Harry Oppenheimer, two is Jan Stein, and the last one is Anton Rupert. Those three people are the results of the context of the Satan expropriation that we are calling upon. Why I'm saying that, there was an ideology of forming an urban foundation. These three were the leaders of such urban foundation. It does not address our ideology as African, but it changed our ideological indigenous knowledge. Why? It was mainly because it wants to redirect us from our own way of living into become the middle class Africans. Because of such urbanism, it has driven our ideology to think that we are a middle class African. So this expropriation does not serve our purpose, but it serves the purpose of the investors. The question is that, does it serve our interests? No. It still does not address the question of land reform. But I am glad that the leader of PAC is here, or rather the president of PAC is here. Maybe because of him, we will then be able to attain what belongs to us. But this does not address fully the question of land reform, but it is the path We are being lied on. The what so-called 30 years or 31 years of democracy that we are celebrating, we are celebrating non-democracy. There's two things. There's indirect democracy and there is direct democracy. In indirect democracy, no one is the same. Only the members of parliament are the same. But in direct democracy, people shall govern.
Lucas, who is part of Reclaim the City. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Amandla! Baibure! Baibure! Wana Zambia! Colleagues and friends, it's a great honor to be with you today. It's a very difficult moment at a personal level, but I accepted the call to engage with you here today. I want to say that my family has been associated with activism of this institution for more than 40 years. I am one of those that graduated from here in activism, also, not only academia. And so, the notion of the home of the left has been one of a lived experience. And may we continue with that. What we have here today is an example of the connection between academia and activism. And that must continue. We are only starting a debate. We're only starting a conversation that has been long overdue. And a number of points have been made about the land reform that is necessary and is lacking. I am from a movement called Reclaim the City, and we work in the urban space to try and challenge the narrative of the continuation of spatial apartheid that is not being undone. And that is our task as activists, to engage with that is necessary. We live in a city that behaves as if it's a privately owned city, that behaves as if it lives on an island and can dictate to us as citizens of the city. And so our response to engage with the city is paramount. We must begin to challenge the borders that have been created artificially for us as working class people in the city. It's our task to take up the challenge, to unite and to cross the railway line and to cross the freeways. Pipings is still separated from Langa. Langa is still separated from Montivo. That is our challenge. And we can do it. We have shown that we're not afraid to take up arms, to take up the struggle that is necessary to defeat the evil of apartheid. And so, we say, we will take up the challenge to undo spatial apartheid. The city belongs to us. There's a song that I grew up with. It is we who built the city. Now we stand our cars. Amidst the wonders we have made, our time has arrived to take up the challenge to undo spatial apartheid in our city.
The emphasis here is on special justice. We know it has not happened. Yes. So next in line is Nazir Sonde, who is part of food and farming campaign. Over to you.
Thank you. I'm very privileged and honored to be invited to attend this meeting and the minister. My name is Nazir Sonde. I'm a small farmer in the Philippi horticulture area. The area has been historically been providing the city with 30% with vegetables. Our area is important for the city in terms of water supply as well. We are an aquifer. The that has now become very, very important to augment the city's water supply. Our area employs 3,000 workers, 30,000 livelihoods are connected to our agricultural economy, and I am deeply involved with the campaign to protect the area for over 16 years. And we've had a number of successes recently, but all I want to say is this, that on the question of, is expropriation a way to deal with land justice? And the answer is, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. What a short and precise input. Because it's clear here that as a small-scale farmer, you need land. So what the legislation must do, it must deliver land also to small-scale farmers. Thank you very much. Next in line, we've got our SRC president. Can you clap for him, please? Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I think, firstly, it is an honor to be here, and I think it's an honor judging the significance of the moment that we are in, particularly within the current economic context. And as we reflect perhaps on the painful legacy of dispossession and marginalization of it, I think we should not only critically examine how we use land in the present future, but we should also critically examine how we use land for the future. And I aim to argue that. And perhaps let me begin as a premise. I want to say, and I'm going to sound a bit controversial, but I'll aim to argue it. Firstly, I do agree that land expropriation is definitely something that should be achieved immediately. But land, as a standalone factor of production, is gradually phasing out. And I aim to say this because in economics we learn about the 4 factors of production, that's labor, land, capital, and entrepreneurship. Labor is in transition. We see this with how work is being done with technological innovation and all of that. Capital is in transition with all of the, particularly the financial resources that are shifting into digital economies. Entrepreneurship in this current context is the backbone of any economy whatsoever. So, can we take the land back? Yes, we can. But the central question that we should ask ourselves is, are we reforming the land to serve the interests of society and align with the realities of the knowledge economy? That's a central question that we must ask ourselves. And in the next 2 minutes, speaker, I aim to just provide 3 things that are important, right? The first thing that I want to do is to maybe provide an overview of the Act. The second thing is to emphasize the need for equitable land access. And the last thing is, what's the role of universities and academia in achieving land expropriation? So what do we know about the macros of the Act? It was recently signed. It allows the government to expropriate land, and as outlined in the Constitution, and it aims to redress the historical injustices. But my argument is that the Expropriation Act is not just about the mechanics of land reform. It's about addressing the historic injustices and ensuring that the benefits of the land reach those who have been excluded from its ownership and potential for decades. And we have a lot of critics, such as your political parties, your business organizations, and this soccer team called AfriForum, that have, of course, raised their alarms about the negative impact of the Act. They fear that the expropriation could lead to discouraging investments and all of that. But this narrative is rooted by disinformation. The truth is that expropriation of land without compensation is not a free-for-all, right? It is a tool and a means of achieving land justice, where land can be returned to its rightful owners, and that's the people of South Africa. And I see you, speaker, so just give me just 1 minute, 30 seconds, I'll be done. But it is only going to achieve if we use it strategically and intentionally. And there's a narrative about expropriation that says that it could lead to economic instability, right? This is a false narrative that's firstly perpetuated by those who benefit from the status quo. And secondly, a status quo that is built on the dispossession of black South Africans. And let me make this clear. Land expropriation is not about recklessly taking the land from landowners without compensation. It's about ensuring that the land in itself is used equitably and justly. So what do we need to do in terms of equitable access, right? We need to address the critical need for student accommodation, which remains one of the biggest challenges facing students in South Africa today. And land expropriation should not just be about the redistribution of agricultural land, although that's important, I agree. It should also include land for urban and institutional development, which speaks to student accommodation. And that's, I think, one of the fundamental things that should be done. And university campuses should be places of empowerment and opportunity, not spaces where students are just left to navigate the unjust systems that inhibit their ability to succeed. So as I conclude, here's the bigger picture of what universities should do and the role of academia. As we push for land expropriation, and I'm done, just a minute, I'll be done. As we push for land expropriation and reform, the centers of learning and innovation must play a pivotal role. And the University of the Western Cape must lead by example by creating inclusive spaces for students where we can have these kinds of debates. And it's crucial that we recognize the economic value of land in the context of education, entrepreneurship, and student development. And as I close, I want to say this, that let's take the conversation forward, not just as a political issue, but as a societal necessity. A conversation about the Expropriation Act, and let's fight for a future where land justice is directed towards the critical need for student accommodation.
Thank you. I'm done with this panel. So what do we learn from this panel, Minister? Firstly, land reform has to deliver to these different entitlements that she talked about. It must lead to that. It must have an interest, and that interest must be biased towards the poor and the working class, and it must address special justice. Small-scale farmers, they need land also to farm, and students need accommodation. Thank you very much. I will hand over to Paul to introduce the minister. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is Nyhonsto from the researcher at PLAAS. Colleagues, we've heard expropriation is needed. It needs to address real land. It needs to bring about land justice. We do not know how this government plans to use its powers. It has not told us. The Minister of Public Works has the power over this act. We are waiting to hear how he is going to delegate his powers to this minister. Minister, we would like to know what is your plan for how people can activate their demands for land, how they can call for particular pieces of land to be expropriated to address these real needs. Colleagues, we are privileged that the Minister agreed not only to come, but to allow people to speak first and for him to listen. And so now, in response, I'm very pleased to call on the Minister to come and speak to us. Minister Mzwanele Nyhonsto was appointed Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development last year, on the 3rd of July. He's a member of the National Assembly, he's President of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, and last year he became the first Minister in this portfolio. In 2019, he was elected to the National Assembly as the PAC's only MP, and he has served in the Joint Standing Committee on Defence, Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Technology, so you know our sector, the Portfolio Committee on Environment, Forestry and Fisheries, and the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources and Energy, and the Disciplinary Committee. He is also from the Eastern Cape. Minister, you're very welcome. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Prof. And good afternoon, everyone. Rector and Vice Chancellor, Prof. Robert Watford, members of the UWC Executive and Senior Management, senior academics and staff of PLAAS, panelists from civil society organizations, representatives of student leadership organizations, students and workers. And let me greet my colleagues. I see all of them are here, including land commissioners. Let me thank you for inviting me to address you at this very relevant and important dialogue on the Expropriation Act as a tool for justice. In the academy, it is important to state one's positionality in relation to the topic being presented. As you may be aware, in addition to being the Minister of Land and Rural Development, I'm also the President of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Tanzania. Ours is a liberation movement founded on the principle of the restoration of the land to its rightful owners, the indigenous African people. We believe that the land ownership is intrinsic to the very existence of any nation, and that the dispossession of land poses a substantial existential threat to that nation. If anyone doubts my words of an existential threat, let me take you to the Gaza region of the state of Palestine. The apartheid state of Israel and its supporters committed a genocide against the people of Gaza and Palestine. These imperialists and settler colonialists are seeking to wipe out an entire nation to steal their land in broad daylight. I'm using this current example because it may be easier to relate to today. But let us not forget that violent and brutal land dispossession was effectively used in this very country, starting from Jan van Riebeeck, who had it as their stated goals to exterminate the indigenous people across this land. The systematic land dispossession reached its peak with the 1913 Natives Land Act, which stripped our people of land ownership and then restricted their movement by confining them to reserves through the Native Trust and Land Act of 1936. The Bantu Authorities Act of 1951 established tribal authorities called Homelands and Group Areas Act, continued the forced removals of our people, leaving them dehumanized and robbed of their dignity. For some, the events in 1994 was seen as a historic moment to correct the wrongs of the past through the establishment of a universal franchise. And this event is celebrated on the 27th April annually. For millions of dispossessed and landless people, the struggle for the restoration of the land continues. There is no day designated for the restoration of land, despite our painful history. There is no day designated to remember how the land was stolen. There is no day to highlight landlessness in South Africa. Designating such a day will foreground and put on center stage the struggle for the land. On such a day, we can measure our progress, not just on how much land is restored, but how much progress we have made on the restoration of our dignity as a dispossessed people. I want to advance this idea of a land day. There are 2 days that come to mind, 6th April and 19th June. The arrival of the settlers and the day the 1930 Land Act robbed us of our land. I leave this thought for you to engage with and to discuss its viability. Many of you have engaged in struggles for land, researched and commented on the various bills and acts related to land justice. You noted weaknesses in its implementation and mobilized, protested and litigated on issues related to the land. Let me assure you, your efforts are appreciated. We continue to learn from you and we are here to listen what should be prioritized and what must be done. For 65 years, as Pan-Africanists have been saying, land first and everything else will follow. When we say land first, we are not talking about land grabbing, because land grabbing amounts to theft, and theft is the modus operandi of settler colonialists. The settler colonialists can never be our teachers. We do not have to steal what is already ours. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, issued an invitation to to South African farmers, to Afrikaners, to come to the United States because South African government is confiscating their land. The Expropriation Act is not a land confiscation, but they can accept the challenge and go to America. The Expropriation Act intends to take the land and redistribute it legally. Wise and committed revolutionaries and land activists will use this act as an opportunity to advance their cause for land exploration and for land justice. This act has attracted much attention, and many organizations have commented and commentators have spoken about it and have published their opinions. This is especially done to calm landowners and investors that South African economy is not about to collapse because of the passing of the Expropriation Act on the 23rd January 2025. Up until this point, the 1975 Expropriation Act was used to expropriate land. Let's bear in mind that all countries have a Land Expropriation Act for public purpose. The Expropriation Act of 2025 replaces the outdated 1975 Expropriation Act, bringing South Africa's land reform policies in line with constitutional principles. The 1975 Act, drafted during apartheid, was designed to serve state interests with minimum legal protection for affected property owners. It lacked clear definitions of key legal terms, failed to account for socio-economic transformation, and did not outline a structured process for fair compensation. The 2025 Act introduces a transparent expropriation framework that balances land reform with legal safeguards. It clarifies compensation principles, strengthens legal protection, and introduces subject of expropriation without compensation under specific conditions, as stated in Section 13 of the Act. The courts play an important role in interpreting this Act. There is no predetermined decision of nil compensation for all cases where this Act is invoked. The court can arrive at nil compensation based on the merits of the case. I encourage you to read through Section 25 of the Constitution and see how the Expropriation Act has been aligned to the Constitution. Section 13 outlines these cases where the state may acquire property at zero or nominal compensation, such as abandoned land, unused state-owned land, speculative land holdings, and land whose value has substantially increased due to state investment. Long-occupied communal land also falls under the category, recognizing historical injustices. One of the major shifts in the new legislation is the distinction between public purpose and public interest, both of which justify expropriation under the law. Public purpose includes infrastructure projects, public service expansion, and environmental conservation, while public interest focuses on land reform and equitable resource distribution. Again, derived from Section 25, subsection 4A, which talks to the nation's commitment to land reform to bring about equitable access to all South Africans' natural resources. The Expropriation Act falls under the Department of Public Works, and the Act provides a significant role for the Minister of Public Works. The Minister has to follow the law and implement accordingly. You are of course aware of the much publicized DA challenge to the Expropriation Act. Despite the many years of consultation in which the DA participated, they now found objections. I encourage you to read their objections, as it appears to be focused more on process than substance. Specifically, they object to the process of how it passed the National Council of Provinces. In substance, they focus on not allowing the state to have so much power over private property. One of the topics for further dialogue is the capitalist view that the state should not have power over private property. Capitalists view land as a commodity to be brought or sold like any other commodity they seek to profit from. There are no questions asked as to how the land as a commodity For the majority of the people of this country, the land has a story to tell. That cannot be ignored for the short-term gain of profits. The land is part of our heritage to be preserved and protected for future generations. As land activists and researchers, you know which racial group constitute the majority of private property owners. We have also researched how they acquired private property and which racial groups were prevented to own private property in designated areas. We will also ask questions whose private property was confiscated and reserved during the infamous Group Areas Act, who stood in line to benefit from the Group Areas Act. The Expropriation Act uses two very distinct and useful phrases, public purpose and public interest. Both derive from the Constitution. The government will certainly use the Expropriation Act for public purpose, and regardless of the party at the helm of the Public Works Department, competent departments, for example, water and sanitation, human settlement, health and education, will certainly be interested in accessing land to meet demands of their various projects. The test for the Minister of Public Works is to show how he intends using this act to oppose the public purpose of building homes, schools, roads, and hospitals. The public interest is where the existing work of civil society organizations present here are going to get its best support and expression. It is exactly where the spatial apartheid should continue to be challenged and more vigorously than before. The Group Areas Act created and enforced spatial apartheid, opposing and prolonging of the implementation of the Expropriation Act seeks to maintain spatial apartheid. Let me add my voice of the appreciation to organizations such as Reclaim the City and the Fulugwazi and others that are challenging spatial apartheid. The officials of my department presented the first draft of the Equitable Access to Land Bill to the Portfolio Committee on Land Reform and Rural Development on the 19th February. This is the old land redistribution bill that was first proposed in 2018. The bill should be viewed together with the Expropriation Act. The Expropriation Act is quite detailed on processing and procedures. The proposed Equitable Access to Land Bill is aimed at speeding up the process of land redistribution. Let me touch on a few points that we are introducing through this bill. One, an example of this is that when a farm or a privately owned land become available for sale, the government will have the first right of refusal. Currently, land and farms in particular are bought and sold like any commodity in an open market. The seller or supplier must announce the intention to sell land to the state. By introducing this bill and the first right of refusal, the bill allows for the sale to state who will subject the sale to the processes of the Office of Value General. It is here where we can confidently predict cases where nil compensation will arise. Two, the second component of this bill that is worth mentioning is the notion of land ceilings. In this country, vast tracts of land are in individual and private hands, and this needs to be addressed. All land owned, however, is not the same in size and usage, and this is particularly true for agricultural land. Land for cattle and maize growing requires large tracts of land, whereas land and for activities do not. There need to be a valid reason why an individual needs the amount of land that they currently possess. The new bill fundamentally wants to address the amount of land in private hands and make more land available to the state for redistribution. By the way, there is one farmer in Bloemfontein, in Free State, whose farm is bigger than the Sotho, the country. Over 7.2 million hectares of land have been redistributed by the state over the past 30 years. One of the weaknesses of this distribution was that it came without any state support. The bill wants to ensure the success of the redistribution of the land by including a package of land development support, specifically pre-settlement and post-settlement support to the beneficiaries. Four, another component of this bill is that it will seek to define this notion of abandoned land clearly. it will be more explicit in how land must be managed. Many people got land, especially at the dawn of our democracy. There were no plans on what the land was to be used for, and much of this land is abandoned. People have either died or left this country, but they have title deeds to land they abandoned. By focusing on an abandoned land, more land will become available to the state for redistribution. We want this bill to move through the normal processes, but much quicker than the expropriation bill did. This equitable access to land bill, formerly known as the land redistribution bill, has been gathering dust far for too long, and I dare say because of the lack of political will to implement it. Our people are correctly hungry for land. Their patience has run out. We can be rest assured that the challenge to this equitable access to land bill will be far greater than the Expropriation Act. Our task is to address the need of our people for land, and we must have the political will to address these needs. It is the people that determine the future, the stability and progress of the democratic order that we have, and it is their needs that we must prioritize. In conclusion, and by way of example, let me take you to the other struggle for which this democracy owes civil society organizations a great debt. This was the struggle for the implementation of a comprehensive plan and program to address a devastating impact of the HIV and AIDS pandemic had on millions of our compatriots. In that struggle, you as civil society led, taught important lessons, influenced policy, monitored its implementation, and continued to hold government accountable. In that struggle, you faced and overcame many challenges. In this struggle for land restoration, land for food, land for human settlement, land for basic services, and land for dignity, you will certainly have many for more allies, both inside and outside government of the country. And thank you very much.
sons and daughters of the soil. I'm here to maybe say a word of thanks to the minister for coming. But before I do so, I understand the minister heard the panelists, the voices from the panelists sitting in front. I think it's only fair that also those that are sitting behind the minister are getting a chance also to lift up their heads and say something. Comrades, this is how this is going to go. We would plead with you, no preemptors. You see? Because we want to share the time. We want a voice from this side of the room, from this side of the room, and also from that side of the room. So if you come and make a long preamble, you are depriving others a chance to speak. You see? And we're also going to mix it up, a voice from the university, also a voice from the community as well, so that at least we can hear different, and also we want to hear voices of women, and also voices of men. I know gatherings like this, men are much bolder to raise their hands and speak up, you know. So we would also like to hear from women as well. So, why do I sit on it? Okay, Mama, please, not more than 2 minutes. Let's see. Mama. Okay, and then you comrade. We have the minister, and then we will take UCC back there at the last row. Let's put those 3 first comrades. Mama.
Inkosi kakhulu ngizocela uthethe isiXhosa.
Thetha mama.
Ngiyabonga minister ufikile ngithethe nawe endlini. Ngisuke eSamastowne, I'm 70 years old. Ngisuke eSamastowne, ndina 10 years. Kusweleke abazali. Kodwa into eSamastowne ngayifumana bayangixoxisa namhlanje. Ngihlala ekhaya. Ngiyacela please ndandilila kwale reform. Xa kuthiwa igama likaTatamani bonwa ngathi njani. Ndisaxoxa till today. Number 1 law. Okwesibini, kwakufuyiwe ekhaya eSamastowne. Anamhlaba ndiyalima. I've got plus minus 24 years ndikwa-agriculture. Ndisame ndinqumsa. Ndiyacela tata, ndiyakhula, ndiyaguga ngoku amandla ayaphela. Ndiyacela please okokubana khawusincede singabalimi begugu lethu, sifuna imihlaba, siyasokola. Enkosi.
In summary, Mama, her family was forcibly removed by the apartheid government from Simonstown, and their case for restitution is still unresolved. They do need land, so they really reach out to the minister for support around that.
Minister, thank you so much for coming. I'm a law student here, and I've noticed a bit of a trend. Our government would rather take us as citizens to court rather than to find land and build houses for people. So with this expropriation act, will that come to an end, or are you still enemy number 1?
Izwe lethu iAfrika inkululeko maAfrika kukhuluma ngokwakhe unyana usizwe isalo kesona Panelist kudala ngifuna uminister upresident wokutholo kodwa ke ndilento babuka bephathethayo ndiyazibuza apha kuyo as a secretary branch ndisafuna incwadi zokungena kwakhe ku-GNU as the British of the PLC. Thina basukudedicated as a kind of defense for our hayi discipline apha ma-Afrika sizomisebenza ngabe-defend revolution power kasebuku so ngeke agenda ma-Afrika no ndikala nimlinde because akezi ukuthi azosithatha yeah so Afrika
ngiyacela kabani mani sifocus ukuthi sidibene nayo expropriation
bekumele ngokumhlaba sokhona i-PAC nominister womhlaba bekumele ngokusithethe ngomhlaba ukuthi sixhasa ngoba sibheka njani phambili ngoba i-PAC standing from the end since was the established now bekusiyavuma intoba ithile yolina zithile iprinciples zayo ithile nature yayo izopreserva ukuthi as a civic societies as a leaders of the community now sifuna umhlaba now ukuthi ixesha apho bazawuthetha nge-Benin conference because then before the establishment for the Benin conference 1884 now we want our own land phezulu river from the sea sifuna umthetho sifuna istora lomlomo makathatha umhlaba olelungelo eAfrika makaze nomhlaba wangona uminister from ama-PAC uyayazi i-PAC was standing for makenze ngoku sifuna apho
What we can do as co-organizers of this is that we will continue, comrades, with the conversation. We will note the issues we are raising. We will be happy to share them with the office of the minister for subsequent engagements. Because I think Professor Gafo made it very clear that this cannot be a once-off engagement. You know, I think let's take that in that spirit. Before I allow the minister to also say something, do we have a question from people in the media? Because we also have the media as part of us. From the media. Okay.
Hello everybody.
Thank you. Respectfully, Minister, I believe the establishment of the Government of National Unity speaks to SA's decreasing trust in national government's competency in exercising proper authority, control, and upholding the rule of law. And, as was alluded in the invitation to this public discussion, there are factions in society that views this Expropriation Without Compensation Act as a wolf dressed in sheep's clothing. This act arguably sets a dangerous precedent whereby this act may inspire SA citizens to take this controversial law in their own hands by occupying land illegally. So my question is, how can national government absolutely guarantee the protection of private property that is vulnerable to potential illegal land?
Thank you very much. Mangiqale kuwe sisi uthe ufuna uthetha ngesiXhosa. Ndithi njengokuthetha nje zilapha zonke ii-commissioners zama-restitution. So njengokuthetha nje ikheyisi yakho kangemanyelwe ngule-deform, uyazibona ziyarekhodisha ziyabhala. Funeka basiphuma apha uthathe ii-contacts zabo, they must talk to you and address your plight. This is Mr. Mukhatso, the acting Deputy Chief Lands Commissioner, and this one is the acting Chief Lands. All of them are here. So Salabatis is Kaspuma. Salabatis is. So is Karasato, Sifu. Who's still listening? Yes. No. We can't do that. We cannot be the enemy of our people. We are here to serve our people. We are here to make sure that the land is returned to its rightful owners. We can't take you to court. We cannot allow the court to resolve our own problems. This is one of the reasons why we opposed and filed against the Nelson Mandela Foundation case. Because they were saying every 3 months you must go and report in court. So they wanted the court to micromanage us. So we can't do that, and we can't be the enemy of our people. We are with you. We are here to serve you. That must be clear. I don't think I must respond to others. This is not a case. Those who want to address PAC issues must meet with me in the PAC conference this December. I will outsmart them again. Ladies and gentlemen, so my sister, the question of private property, this is what I raised here. You say my problem with some few people who believe that this Expropriation Act is controversial. They are wrong. It can't be controversial. This act is going to address the problems of our people, the landlessness. If you want us not to address this, when are we going to do the redress? We must implement this act. That's why I was also mentioning another bill that must come and fast-track the land reform. It can't be controversial. What was controversial, not only controversial but dangerous, was when our land was taken from us to the government. Our land was taken to the barrel of a gun. Our people were killed. Our brothers were maimed and they were raped. At least this government is returning the land through the act of parliament, not through the barrel of a gun. Lastly, Madam Director, because I must rush to parliament. Lastly, let me assure you, those who are invited by America to go to America, they are not going to go. You know why? They are not going to go to America because in America, they are not going to own 16 farms. In America, there will be no black people to make them slaves and slaughter them and feed them into pigs. In America, they will go and stay in a rural area of Arizona. They are not going to go there. They can't even go with the temperature there. There will be hurricanes there. Azania is the only land that they must come and invest in.
We would like to, at this point, the Minister, unfortunately, has to leave. And we want to say thank you to him to avail himself for such a brief time And we are hoping that it is not the last time that we engage with the minister. And we are hoping that this is not the last of the engagements of this nature. So I know comrades want to raise things with the minister, but the minister was here. We also want to thank the Rector as well for coming. Comrades, the subject that brought us here is not a minister's property. It's a government program that pertains to the future of all South Africans. So when the minister leaves the room, it does not mean that the discussion must end. Because this is not about the tenure of the minister. It's about the future of land holding in the country. I know that some of the people might feel that there's nothing further to speak about when the minister is not around. I think, comrades, we need to use this opportunity that we are together to share further views on how we can use land expropriation for justice. The minister did say his say, and the voice of the minister, as important as it is not the only one in the matter. Also, your voice, as you are farm workers, is important. Your voice, as people are occupying these unused buildings, who are fighting evictions, is important. Your voice, as small-scale farmers, who are deprived security in the urban space, is important. Students, also their voice on this matter is important. So I want to encourage us to continue the conversation. I know we don't matter to the minister, but we are here to speak to one another and enrich our understanding of this issue. I noted comrade Spoon, and I noted second comrade there. I'm sorry, my comrade. I just couldn't do otherwise, And then the third hand, this time I get it, Yeah. Spoon.
No, thank you very much, Chair of the session. I actually wanted to raise two questions to the Minister. I wanted actually to raise two questions, but perhaps through the organizations that are facilitating this, those questions can be a follow-up, probably sent to his office or something. I am concerned with the preamble of this act, because sometimes, or most of the times, the preamble is able to give you the spirit of the act and its scope. Now, my question was, how will this act protect the people who are already criminalized by government as land grabbers? How will this act not be used against the same people the minister is claiming to be the rightful owners of the land? Because the mayor of the city of Cape Town once said that he's happy of this act because it gives them much more power to be able to deal with occupations such as Sisipul House in Nyhonsto. Now, how will this act not be used against the rightful owners of the land, according to him? The last question is, I heard him somewhere agreeing that government offering money to people who are claiming land is actually wrong and should be stopped, because people make claims for land and before they are given the land back, there's an offer to give them money that is much more less to the value of the land, of the property. Now, often our people, because of many challenges that they are facing, they accept the money. Now, my question was, what are the plans of this department to make sure that people who are robbed, when they claim the land that is worth millions of rands and they get 70,000, which is not even 50% of the value of the property, is he prepared to open up those cases and make sure that due diligence is done and those people actually are given their land instead of them being offered money? Thank you very much.
Okay. I think my colleagues are also going to help me to note some of the things that are being raised here, because as much as we will share these things, but these are questions or a basis for further engagement. I think there was a hand there, that side. Yeah, please, it's your turn.
Thanks, Governor. I'm Tara, and I'm from the churches which we claim back as the name from Netherlands because it's a Dutch descendant's name. And our issue is that we started to give papers to the DA, the ANC, the struggling league, because they're all tentacles of the same thing. And what we are saying is that the Anglo-Roman Dutch law system accommodates that we don't get what we deserve at the end of the day. And so what we are saying is there are certain concerns that we raised, like we joined the case last week, which the DA launched, but we've joined the case on the basis of that the political parties don't have a say in the issues of land, but it's the people that must have a say. The courts don't have a say in these cases. On that basis, we've joined it. So actually, we opposed the case of the DA. And then the last thing I wanted to raise is the issue on the human settlement. The word human settlement is a disgusting word actually at this point, because if we are reflecting to land and human settlement, then it means we are not going to move away from the apartheid spatial planning processes. The other issue is the evictions versus forced removals. We cannot still have evictions of our African people taking place, which is exactly the issue of forced removals. And then our big issues in the townships is the issue of housing, violence, and then the evictions that's taking place. And those are all connected to the issue of land. And so when people are speaking that we need to go back to the land, it's actually to you. And that is what we as the African En Marche campaign is saying, that we need to move away from the Anglo-Roman Dutch system to get healing to our people. Thank you.
Thank you. You'll be next, my brother, then you'll follow. And then we'll give chance to members of the panel to also say a bit more, then we take another one. Yes.
I just want to say I'm both a student and an activist, and this land issue was the subject of my master's thesis. I took a specific community. Can you hear me? I took a specific community as a case study and looked at their journey from dispossession to open land. And what had happened there was the land that they bought wasn't handed over to them because they were colored. So for years, they sat with no way. Eventually, we had to take the case to court, and we did, and we won the case. But the struggle to get your own land back, that you purchased, is a subject of apartheid. It's a subject of our determination to get to the end of it. And I think this particular land issue is something we need to do and take back. Not through fights. We can do the land audit. We all have mamas and papas, uncles, what have you, who have lived on the land that they were removed from. So if you do a land audit, as this university and all the other universities, you can know to whom that land belonged in the first place. So these people who claim ownership of land that their ancestors stole from us will be able to point out, but it's not your land. You got that land through devious means. Then we can begin to start a campaign of restitution, giving back that land. But we can't be standing up and down and screaming. I did that in my youth. But we need to be systematic all the time in how we get our land back. we're a nation of people who have been dispossessed. We know exactly where we were dispossessed from. We need to bring that information to the minister then and tell him this was the circumstances under which that happened. Whoever owns that land right now was illegally owned. People were dispossessed. I make the case about a Ferrari. I bought a Ferrari and suddenly I could not own that Ferrari anymore because my color determined that I could not own that Ferrari. No matter what I put into that Ferrari to purchase it in the first place, the land issue is the same. We own the land. Those colonizers did not come on the boat with land. They came here and took it. So we need to go and do our own homework and determine where that land went to, at which point did it go there, and tell the minister, but this land, here's the documentation, here's the paperwork, we want our land. Expropriation happened to us, our ancestors, first. Thereafter, they claimed this land of and the Expropriation Act has been an injustice.
Okay, thank you. Comrade, please, Pagam Comrade, yeah.
Thank you. I'm a young man returned from the dusty states of Mzwanele, raised by black parents that own 12 hectares of land, but because they are black, they never received any assistance from the government to continue the crop farming. When I heard our panelists when they were speaking, one of the panelists said, when we consider giving back land, we should not consider the things of agriculture because they no longer matter that much. I'd like to note that agriculture in 2020, when the economy was dropping, agriculture increased with 14%, which is why the white colonizers, people from the West, they never want to give back the land because they know the power of land in terms of agriculture, mineral resources South Africa has. Also, my question is, in this bill, does this bill serve as a frame to an old photo? Because when you check 1994, from the Codesa, when Crisani walked out and said, I will never negotiate for what is mine, give me back for what is mine, he was assassinated. We were told that we are in 30 years of democracy, and that is in paper to serve white people, not black people. Black people continue to suffer. So in 1994, an old picture was replaced with an old frame, with a new frame. Does this act is going to do the same thing to replace the very same old picture with a new frame, or is going to change the old picture to a new picture, to a new South Africa, whereby rightful owners of land will get to what is theirs, and it will be taken back from white colonizers. I mean, white colonizers don't belong to South Africa. It's up to them whether they want to live or whatever. So also, when you giving back the land, we will consider the black farmers by giving them resources as they deserve. Because as it stands, there are many black farmers here, but they don't get any resources. The very same black ministers, they take resources to white capitalists and for them to say, if you go to Stellenbosch farms, you will find a big tractors there, which are government purchased. Like they are never given to black people, they never serve their people, they serve them because of the GNU. Now we GNU, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we're noting different inputs and it shows how broad and how deep this issue is. Because some of the things that have come up here are quite interesting, you know. That means that the land question has so many unresolved elements. For example, I think Comrade raised the issue of financial compensation that is part of, land reform. We know how that went. Because a lot of families that were financially compensated remained landless. And the resources that went into these programs of compensating people financially are actually earmarked to actually address the issue of landlessness, to reduce the number of people that need land. But people are paid money and they never, ever actually resolve landlessness through that money. My family is one of them. Some of them are not in speaking terms today, because of this financial compensation. And also I think the issue of human settlements has come up and evictions of movers and the landlord. But before I kind of bring in the panel, I want to also maybe provoke something. And I want to provoke something. Whenever we think about expropriation, we think about the state. Of course, it is a state program to take land so that it can be purposed for public use. Comrades who are in movements, comrades who have occupied land, who have forced the government to roll out services on those land and formalize those communities. What have you been doing, if not expropriating? What have you been doing if you're not expropriating from below? I understand there's a question, my brother, for you. I think the comrade wanted to challenge that. But let's start with you updating. Just 3 minutes, just the last ones. I know the minister spoke. Before I throw it back there, I also need to maybe hear a bit more from you. Muslim Afrikaans is all right.
Wat ek nog wil byvoeg. Ons wat grondloos is. Soos ek gesê het, ek is 'n plaaswerker. Ek het van 13 jaar af gewerk op 'n plaas. En ek kan niks vandag wys nie. Maar ek het daai plase opgebou met my 2 hande. Van nul af het ek begin van niks af. Tot nou. So nou. Ek voel. Ek is nog reg. So ek wil my grond terug hê. Dat ek wil nie 'n baas wees nie. Maar ek wil my eie ding doen. So ek sê weer dat ek wegkom van die government. Dat die 2000 randjie dat hulle vir ons nie is peanuts. Ek wil het vir die minister gesê, is peanuts, maar dis nie sy probleem nie. Nou is ek 'n staatafhanklike. Ek wil regtig daar, terwyl my oë blink en my hande vol plooie gewerk is vir die commercial farmers. Hulle kinders is nog nie eens gebore nie. Dat hy kind 'n stuk grond wat aan my behoort. I want my land back. I want my land back. Because I want my own land to provide for my kids. And I thank you.
We're still connecting another round from here. And I'm sorry, I'm waiting. Comrades, we're not going to translate. Because it's a challenge we need to deal with personally. That let us try and understand those languages that are spoken around us every day. You can't make special mention. Don't translate from English. And then if you need to translate from other languages. It's not fair. Except in the French book, the part of the caps.
Thank you once again. I have heard the audience, they will raise the issue, or rather the question of the compensation. The other one was raising the issue of land information. Would it be ascertained by this so-called expropriation? But I just want to reread the principle of this conversation so that we may not deceive ourselves of thinking that this will appropriate us of be given will be given what we want. There is this principle that I wanted to read before people here. It says this expropriation it intends to provide the expropriation of property for a public purpose or in the public interest, to regulate the procedure for the expropriation of property for a public purpose or in the public interest, including payment of compensation to identity-certain instances where the provision of nil compensation may be just and equitable for expropriation in the public interest, to repeal the Expropriation Act of 1975, Act number 63 of 1975. Now, as I just read this principle, and I wanted to do what's so-called interconnectedness of the speech of the president of the country, of Cyril Ramaphosa. He said that he intended to use this Expropriation Act to restore, he intended to use this Expropriation Act to restore, and to restore, not only to restore and to reclaim the buildings that have been actually populated by the number of those people in Johannesburg, 300 of them. When we're talking about the 300 of people who are dwelling in these buildings that the government wants to use, and I can understand my fellow panelist here when he's talking about the disaccommodation. He's like, he's raising the issue of accepting this expropriation because of he's looking forward on this student accommodation. It is what this president of the country is willing to do, to put the people that who are dwelling at this building away from the shelter, away from the safety, throwing them to the streets because of taking them away from the place that at least it served them. Not actually served their purpose, but at least they were safe on those buildings until further purpose that the government will actually give them a space to indwell. But the main thing that, the most thing that I want to address, it is the issue of as we are the occupants of these different informal settlements that erected our shelters in 2020, we experienced what we were called the invaders, and we called the unlawful occupiers. But we hear nothing about the colonialists that they are being pointed as the thief or the invaders or the unlawful occupiers. Because of, I was looking furthermore to what governed the policeman policies. Sorry, what governed the police department, and then I found out that in order to be called a thief by the policeman, you need to take something. Even if you have asked for that, you need to take something, and with intentions of permanently taking it away from the person that who has given you, and that will be called a thief. So they come to our African land and they dispossess our land. And if we want to address the issue of hunger and poverty, we need to understand that before the conquest in 1652, we were independent because from this same very land, we were able to sustain ourselves, we were able to eat food from the land. But since they have ideologically taken away the land from us so that we may depend on them, that's how market entry was introduced. And then this market entry that was introduced, it was introduced for us to obtain a grade 12 certificate. Without a grade 12 certificate, then we will not be required, or rather will not be afforded a chance to work. So this bill does not address the issue of unemployment, but by being given us our land, then the issue of hunger and poverty and unemployment will be addressed fully. Because of we are unemployed, it was made by them, by taking away our farms, by taking away our crops, our animals, our cows, and then they make us to work for them. And then they come up with this ideological system of making us to labor for a lower income, so that they preserve the profit of their business. So what I'm saying is that this expropriation does not address fully the question of land reform, but it is the leverage if it could be used carefully. Even the president himself, I don't know why he is actually saying something else, because of I listened to the media. He was talking about the issue of this expropriation does not fully address the message of PAC, the cardinal pillar of PAC, but it actually addressed the message of GNU. Thank you.
Give comments in the panel, the second round, then I will also forward it to others. Thank you, comrade, for raising this issue of occupation of buildings, because the next speaker is somebody who is at the forefront of defending the right to live and create a home in a building that was unused for almost 30 years. And I'm sure people in Joburg would agree with me that there's a building called Carlton Centre that is almost 30 years. It has not been sitting vacant, So this is a trend within our urban spaces that also exploration can also perhaps try to understand with that.
I hope everyone can hear. I think the biggest challenge that we have as activists, we don't engage in our demands. The time has arrived for us to formulate our positions and then to go and lay claim to their positions, to negotiate those with the state. This dependency on the state to provide what have they provided in 30 years? You think they're going to do any better in another 30 years? But are we going to do better? Yes, we can. Because that has to be done. And so to reclaim, for example, how do we reclaim the city of Cape Town? We are migrant workers in our city. We go at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock to go and dispense of our labor in the city in the morning and back again in the evening at 5, 6 o'clock after having built gentrified buildings and all kinds of stuff. So we have a challenge of how do we formulate our demands and then say collectively as citizens of this city, how do we take forward those demands and engage with different levels of the state, be it national government, provincial government, as well as the city of Cape Town. That for me is necessary so that occupations become a way if we do not want to engage with us. Whether that occupation is of a local level property, a local level piece of land, a provincial or even national. Because if we don't take action to establish our position, we will be defeated. And the time has arrived for us to be bold and say, the legislation that you are asking us to respect does not meet our needs. We want more, but we must formulate what the more is. That is what we have to do. To say that if you want to expropriate land for housing, it must be the following way. For example, The national government owns a lot of property in the city of Cape Town. It doesn't have to expropriate it. It has to redefine its purpose. It must become of social use. It must become for residential purposes. Nobody else needs to do that. The national government, the provincial government, the city has the powers to do that. But they're not going to move unless we force them to move. That has become necessary. And so, one of the things that the minister speaks about is a land game. That is something we can decide upon. We don't have to wait for national government, but we can say, this will be our land game in Cape Town. This is what we're going to do as social activists for our land game. And we need to push them. There are things that we can do that does not require government or state intervention, but it requires us to be committed to take charge of our struggle.
I'm very critical points without wasting any time, because I want to also give chance to the floor. Comrade Nazir, I know you were very stingy in the first round about what you had to say, but I am sure now you can expand a bit more. And while you are thinking of before you say that, I also perhaps would like the president of this I'll say, because he mentioned something earlier that is very critical. That we, as a university, we need to begin to open inclusive spaces for debating these important national issues. I would like perhaps the president in your time to just expand on that one, because I do think it speaks to what we are trying to do.
So I want to bring some information to the House in terms of farming, agriculture, and food. Now, there are farmers in the House, but often farmers' voices are subdued and silenced by the loud voices in the urban areas for land for housing. And so I wanted to, in a few minutes, just show the importance of land for farmers and for agriculture. So, if you can think about all the expropriation, the benefits of all the expropriation law, you can look at a number of benefits. I mean, the one benefit really would be to protect our agricultural land, which we are losing left, right, and center. We have only a finite amount of agricultural land to produce our food in this country, and we are losing it to developers, mining companies, infrastructure, etc. Right? The other market benefit of expropriation is to create more jobs and livelihoods, new jobs and livelihoods through agriculture. And this is a big and you know where jobs and livelihoods can be created, where people can become their own masters of their own businesses. Okay? And then of course food production, food sovereignty. Also another public benefit is to protect our ecosystem and biodiversity of protecting agricultural land. And so I want to talk about 5 crises that we are facing in this country. First, we have the land loss crisis. We are losing agricultural land, left, right, and center, our best agricultural land. If you can think of the size of Kruger National Park, that's how much of land we lost over the last 30 years. And this land is irreplaceable. You cannot use the land anymore because there are other functions of the land. Secondly, we have a farmer crisis. Right? Do you know in this country of 60 million, only 35 to 40,000 white commercial farmers is growing 80% of our food. Just if you compare to Thailand, for example, 16 million farmers are growing Thailand food, and they are about half our population. And the problem that we have is that the government's land reform program is not addressing how to develop young black and colored farmers to replace these farmers. 20% of these white farmers are going to be retired in the next 10 years. 20% of them. So the question is, who's going to grow food in the future? We can't, if you're in a city, you'll be able to buy food if you're lucky, if you have the money to buy it, because that food will come from everywhere else, Laos, Kenya, Israel, China, right? But we can have a huge food crisis if we don't have the farmers to farm our food. Then we have a land degradation crisis. The way that the white farmers and white landowners have abused our land has led that most of our land is degraded. Most of our land is degraded, right? And so we need to think about how do we make this land fertile? How do we regreen this land? How do we fix the ecosystems in which this land is located? And this is a very important because it talks to what's going to happen to climate change. Climate change is going to lead to our problems for us in terms of our land. And then number 4, we have a corruption problem. Everybody knows this. But particularly I want to raise the issue of corruption in the way government allocates land to land reform beneficiaries. It seems that only government ministers and officials, pals and friends can hold the land. In our case, in the Philippine horticulture area, we have spent 9 years protecting 100 hectares from a developer who after 9 years he gave up and he sold the land to the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform. But guess what? That land was allocated, all 100 hectares were allocated to 4 gobos from somewhere else. Completely ignoring the local community and completely ignoring the fact that those 4 gobos were unable to farm 100 hectares in their whole lifetime. Today, white farmers next door is farming that land for them. Yeah? So we have a huge crisis of way government allocates land to the beneficiary selection process. And then finally, I want to say we have a farm size crisis because we have been told that you can only be a good farmer in large tracts of land, large land holdings, and this is completely false because this suits the white farmer landowner who wants to hold on to his land. See. But the reality is 70% of food produced locally and in Africa are produced by small-scale farmers. Farmers who are farming on between 1 acre and 5 acres. And so we need to fix the way we think about farm size when we allocate land for land reform or when we expropriate land from white landowners. So in total, I want to say that we need to be mindful in the urban context of the problems of food security, the problem of food supply, the problems of farmers, so that we can continue to supply you with food in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So, just in the interest of time, 3 things that I predominantly wanted to highlight. And as a premise, let me say that, and in fact, it's unfortunate that my learned friend is not here to explain exactly what it is that was implied. I did not disregard the importance of agricultural reform through the Expropriation Act. but I said that if the land question is central, that it should also question what are other forms of reform besides agricultural reform. And that spoke to the Student Accommodation Project as a means of using the Expropriation Act. So it's not by any means an allusion or an argument that I aim to say that agricultural reform should be sidelined. No, in fact, they can go hand in hand. So that's where I want to start in terms of the premise. And the second thing that I want to say is that, so I study economics. I'm a neoclassical economics kind of thinking person. And one of the things that we study is the transition of the factors of production. And in my argument here, I said that the three factors of production, they are in transition, except for land. And the question that I then ask myself is that, how does land really transition in the context of identifying the realities and the interests of society at this current moment? Because labor is in transition with the fourth industrial revolution and how people are working. Capital, the framework of how we transact, it's in transition. But the question I'm having is, how is land becoming in transition? And that's where it brought me to a frame of thinking to argue, or to ask myself, what is the major role of universities and academia in terms of this Expropriation Act and ensuring that land is in transition too? And this is why I argue that universities should be an inclusive space where students can argue land reform that serves society's best interests, particularly in the age of the knowledge economy. Because what will make us very competitive, not only as just a university, but as South Africa as a whole, is how are we competing in the global context. And that's through the knowledge economy, because that's what many economies are using at this current moment in time. And it's crucial, secondly, that we identify the economic value of land in the context of education, entrepreneurship, and student development. And the university must ensure then that its land is used to advance the cause of student well-being. In fact, one of the articles that I'm busy writing at this current moment is the biggest movement after fees must go will be student accommodation. And you understand the vis-a-vis relationship because as the institution is increasing its admissions, they're not increasing the bed space capacity. And therefore, that is a huge area of concern. And you see this year in, year out. The central question, or the central protest that happened across various institutions of higher learning, it's student accommodation. It's always student accommodation. So I think then, as an argument or as part of my submissions, it's important that land reform be there because we should even thank the fact that we have to go through legal processes to expropriate land. They must thank us for that. The fact of the matter is that we will expropriate that land. Come high, hell, or storm water, it will be expropriated. But the question that we must ask ourselves is, how is it expropriated for us to ensure that it is in the best interests of society? That's the question that we must answer. And as I conclude, here are the stats that we won't realize. About 72% currently, the land, 72% of it is privately owned and predominantly it's white. Not using the legal definition and not excluding anyone, but Colours own about 15% of that land. And Africans, blacks particularly, own about 4%. Yet, the population speaks contradictory of that. So then, I would have loved the minister to come explain what is their plan in terms of expropriation as a government model. What is their plan? Because there's also 7% of unregistered land. Just land that's just sitting there. What is the government saying about 7% of that land? How do we redistribute it for the benefit of all South Africans? So that's the question we should be asking ourselves, and that's the broader role of universities and academia in the context of expropriation.
Comrades, we're on over time, so please, I would ask people to please be short so that we can squeeze in as many voices as possible. My two sisters. it is impossible for me to give both of you sitting next to each other a chance to speak. So I was going to say maybe one of you can share what they want to say, and then another one can speak. You know, I can't do both of them. So one of you will speak, but yeah. From the student side, I've recognized Panelist. I also, there, right at the back, at the gallery, you see also, I see who will be here. Students, but we're going to start with, then we're going to follow with Lisa.
I just want to say we come from different organizations. We speak different messages to the world. We're not the same. I just want to start with that.
No, I understand, message. I'm just saying that in terms of facilitating, it would seem unfair that I give a mic previously and the person is sitting next to them. It's only strategic that you can just take a story and also ventilate it. Because your struggle is also a struggle.
It's totally different. She should be given a chance to speak for her own message to the world.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Nyhonsto. My expertise has been accounting, but I'm also involved in land farming and just a concerned civilian. So, with regards to what we're here for, I just want to say the first thing is this. How are we preparing our people to work the land when we have been given the land? I think leaving this place, we all need to come with ideas that government must start preparing the youth and all society to work the land. We don't want this Zimbabwe situation. Preparations must start rigorously. Secondly, I also want to say something. When the government takes the land and compensates people who stole it or decides that you don't deserve compensation for some reason, are they going to go to jail for stealing? I know some ancestors are gone, but I think people need to go to jail. That's my thinking. My last message now, I'm going to stop talking. No one here, even the minister, I wanted to raise this fact. When I arrived here in Cape Town, I'm still new here, what I saw is shocking and no one talks about it. Group Areas Act did not go away, and I heard the minister thinking that it went away. It did not. It came in a different face in Cape Town. Prices. They're making sure no black person or disadvantaged person of another race can ever live in those areas. That way you can breathe cleaner air and you can actually feel comfortable. They must always live in fear in these other areas that are cheaply priced. So the Group Areas Act that's happening in Cape Town is pricing. Food pricing, when you go and entertain yourself in those nice areas with better air to breathe, the prices are so high and only the foreigners, Europeans, can afford, as well as South Africans who own those properties and those businesses. This is very wrong. It's so wrong that it's a sin. I'm sorry.
I think the point is very clear. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We have a message that has been brought to us by people who cannot be here today. So, in the panel we've had people from farms, people from informal settlements, people from urban occupations, small-scale farmers in the city, and students. There are important other groups who want to see expropriation advanced for land justice. One is the group of people, the huge number of people who are waiting for their land claims to be resolved. We've heard that. Restitution claims. But another group are the huge number of people living in the communal areas with customary and informal land rights, many of whom are affected by mining deals, by ecotourism deals, and and other corporate investments, often with government backing, that dispossess people. This is the Alliance for Rural Democracy. This is an alliance which is made up of grassroots movements, civil society actors that work to fight unjust laws and practices in the former Bantustans. The message from the alliance says, we hope that this Expropriation Act will be implemented with fairness, and this means recognizing that many rural communities still have unregistered rights. For us, rural people's land is often taken away because of these corrupt land deals. Often the scale of dispossession is viewed to be small, but it actually encourages elites on the ground who have more resources. We at the Alliance for Rural Democracy are committed to restorative land justice. We believe that customary land rights still need to be better protected by laws and policy. Thanks to UWC and partners for convening this, let expropriation be used to bring real redress after 30 years of democracy. So that is a message from other people who are saying we also fear that the state actually dispossesses people in the communal areas. The state often together with capital. And this brings perhaps one critique of the minister's speech today, which is that in response to the very clear demands for specific pieces of land, his answer is, don't worry, we will have a right of refusal so that when people sell land, we can get it. That does not help Auntie Betty. It does not help the people in the occupations. He said we will have a ceiling on land holdings. So I think that this is an opportunity perhaps for UWC to be creating a series of opportunities for people to say, here's what a people-driven land reform looks like. Not market, not state, here's what a people-driven reform looks like. So maybe, CB, we need to put our heads together and think of the next step so that the end of today is just the start of a series of more concrete engagements.
Okay, like I said, comrades, we are on overtime. We are on overtime. We had I'm governor, you've read your head up for the last hour, so I come to bribe you.
One thing, you know that before.
Yeah, we're coming. Wait your turn.
Afternoon, everybody. I actually wanted to speak to the minister because he's been talking about stuff like they're gonna buy farms who is available. He's been lying. Just a month ago, the minister said there's a moratorium on farm evictions. He's been lying. I am working with farm evictions, and evictions are happening up till now. So if he said he's gonna buy farms, and I want the people to make a note of it, by the time the farm is sold, the farm workers who live on that farm doesn't even know that farm is sold. And then the new owners come and they come with the eviction plans. So the minister must not come and tell lies here, because we know the system is corrupt. We're sick and tired of the corruption within government systems. And I wanted to tell him that in person, but you didn't give me a chance at first. So now, if they said they're gonna expropriate, is that person who's gonna receive that land, are they gonna have title deeds? Because it's no use you're gonna get land from government, but you don't have title deeds. We as farm workers and farm dwellers, we love the land, we work the land. The food that he as a minister buy in Woolworths and in Shoprite and in Pick n Pay, it comes from the workers' hands. But afterwards, there came new owners, government came, useful for us. We are angry as farm workers. We call on meetings with the minister. I wanted to ask him, is that new land bill available for us to study? Because we need that information. But he's out here. We didn't have the time to speak to him. Because we have to see that new bill so that we can prepare us for what is coming. I think next time when we call on the minister, he needs to spend time more on the floor so that the problems can go exactly to him. Thank you.
The more we say over time, the more hands are shooting up to speak. And comrades, you are not take 2 hours for a topic like expropriation. We are guaranteed that not all of us are going to be happy. You know? Because I think some of the people are repeating things that have been raised by comrades in the panel. You know? So I'm like now this big bad wolf sitting here almost. Yeah. Okay, comrades, for those, Etienne, he left.
Sorry, leader. I can go ahead. Thank you very much. Firstly, comrades, I think we can't talk about land expropriation without the full recognition and acknowledgement of history. We know that indentured laborers were brought from places like Malaysia, Indonesia, China, and India. Today, whose lands are these indentured laborers staying upon? Secondly, comrades, we can't talk about land expropriation without talking about the housing question. The national galleries that was taking place 2018-2019 came after land occupations for housing took place, and not agricultural land. Who is talking about the Moravian churches that are owning land on whose cult, comrades? And also, we are confining the issue of land expropriation to the issue of agriculture, while there are many other reasons why land is needed. Comrades, there's a reason why.
Comrade Kenneth,
this is my last point.
I think you might have arrived late because that's not what transpired here.
This is my last point.
The composition of the panel itself is very clear. What expropriation and the perspective to expropriation.
Thank you, leader. This is my last point.
Okay.
There's a reason, comrade, that there's such a long, the section 25 is so long in the Constitution. There's a reason why not, so that to keep people away from accessing land. And now to add another bill on top of already things that are enshrined within the Constitution. It's enough discussions now, comrades. It's time for implementation. We can't ask land from the minister who doesn't own land himself. We need to go and occupy land, and they need to deal with the occupation.
Okay, comrades, here's the thing. This session, comrade, is being recorded. You know? So the things that have been raised are not lost. So we will combine the list of points from the recording and share that with the minister's office. And like the Rector said this morning, that this is the beginning of an engagement of this nature. It's not the end. We're opening up this discussion. We are not concluding it. You see? And as those that are based here in the university, we are crafting this discussion in a manner that it should include both students, academics, workers, and community organizations, land activists, and movements. That is the aim, you know, that is how we frame this discussion. This is not a discussion about one particular issue or about one particular community. It needs to cut across, because we've seen the things that emerged here: student housing, Also, people need land for housing, land for agriculture, land for many other purposes. So I think, comrades, sometimes when we participate in this debate, we need to appreciate that there are many things we need to engage with. There are many things that we need to deal with. We need to connect our struggles. So we are going to carry on with this discussion, hopefully that the next time there won't be so many people leaving the room when the issue that is at the heart of their suffering is under discussion. We're hoping for that. And on that note, comrade, I would like to, sorry for those that I deprived the chance, I really wasn't going to English, and I would like to thank everyone. Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Movement of farmers. I think we need to emphasize that it's very important that we have farmers as part of these discussions. It's very important we have housing activists. It's very important we have farmers. Very important we have students. We have academics. We have everyone as part of this discussion. We might not agree on everything, but the dialogue needs to continue. Thank you.